All right, we're live.
Oh,
Let me
hello.
see. It's just setting up your meeting for Facebook Live.
I don't have to do anything, right?
No, we just have to, we're just talking, you know?
Perfect. Cool.
All right. Let me start recording this. We're live on Facebook now. Hi, people. Great to see you all again. So we're going to do a talk about let's going to the farm, or AKA eliminating food waste by buying directly from the farmers. And we're actually one person down, so we're waiting for Matilda, but let me introduce the wonderful Carolyn Shima, yeah, for you, who's from Eat Grim, or Grim. Eat Grim, right?
Eat Grim, yes. We changed our company name to Eat Grim. We thought it would explain more.
So you're actually eating it. Yeah, that's cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, while we're waiting for Matilda, I was just thinking, like, maybe you can tell me a little bit about yourself and your road to working for Eat Grim, and how you came up with the idea and how you came about,
Absolutely.
working with produce and agriculture.
Yes. Yes, that's a really good question, because I don't have an agriculture or food background whatsoever. But yet somehow I ended up founding a company called Eat Grim, together with my good friend Petra, who I met during master studies at Copenhagen Business School. We studied innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainable business. These master studies always have very long and complicated names. But so basically, we were two exchange students who met at school and figured out that we are really interested in food for different reasons. Like Petra, she was like a hardcore vegetarian who converted all her family to be vegetarians too. And me, I just love food. I love to eat delicious food. And where I grew up in southern Germany, it's like a very agricultural area. My grandfather used to be a farmer as well. So somehow I had this interest. And then when we studied, we decided to dedicate all our projects, and a lot of them was group work, to studying global food systems. So basically, we were particularly interested also in, from like the marketing perspective. Basically, we looked at things like superfoods. We tried to understand how food items that are actually indigenous to faraway parts of the world acquire the status of a superfood, and what kind of effects it has. And as we know, often there is an increased demand in what we call the global West, and as a consequence, it often results in like issues for the growing communities. Like, of course, they also, get some incomes, but often it ends up in environmental depletion, but also social challenges. There were like some, stories about the Bolivian farmers who can't afford to eat their own quinoa anymore, or acai berry that got a complete slump in 2008. The whole market crashed, and all of a sudden all these farmers lost their income. So kind of like what we realized or understood is that the West has such a big impact on growers, and the West is always deciding what's good and what's not, basically. And we started looking in Denmark too, to see if there's like any similarities, and so we just looked at food waste, and tried to understand how it happens as a societal problem. And this is also when we realized that, once again, some players hold a lot of power while others suffer from it. And by that we mean farmers suffer from, let's say, what we call strict beauty standards that supermarkets impose on how food should look like. Yeah, so for example, curvy cucumbers or three-legged carrots or too small apples, all of these things you don't find in supermarkets, right? Everything in the shelves looks like uniform. And this is where when we decided to do more about this problem. And so we started, or like founded our company, Eat Grim, 3 years ago. So now we basically buy everything that farmers can't sell on the normal markets, and then sell it on in other forms. For example, we have a food box subscription business, where people can like order boxes home to their door and use these ugly veggies for cooking. And we also supply food businesses.
Cool.
Yeah.
So is there any like is there any kind of quality rating that you do for the foods, or do you just take everything?
No, absolutely not. I mean, for us, it's like the most important job is that we check the quality and that we ensure that it is ugly but perfectly edible.
Yeah. Okay.
Because like, I mean, what we need to do is, you know, change people's perception of that, let's say maybe ugly. A lot of people think ugly means bad quality, but actually it's not. So obviously we always have to make sure that we always give them the top quality. So we actually have some internal quality measures as well. We do like quality checking of everything that comes into our warehouse and goes out. Yeah, and we often just use our basic senses, like taste, firmness, things like that.
Okay.
That's often enough.
Yeah. Cool. It sounds like you almost answered like my second question, which is like, was there like a particular trigger or something that where you made, like you mentioned the beautification of the what would you say, of the agriculture or the food aisles in the supermarkets, like, but was there a particular trigger where you were like, wow, this is mind blowing, we have to do this, like somebody needs to fix this problem?
I think by simply doing the research and trying and like understanding that eliminating food waste is the third most impactful solution to tackle climate change. And I think that speaks for itself. And I think also through our research, it really showed that, you know, it doesn't work what we have right now. Like we need something else that challenges these existing wasteful power structures, because companies are not interested in solving them themselves. If there's no incentive for them, they're like just fine. So there needs to be someone or something that challenges them and also calls them out. And I think that's really important, you know, like speaking the truth and not being afraid of saying how shitty things are. Yeah.
Cool. That's mind blowing though. Like I always find it interesting when if you actually, you know, when you look at the problems and how much we can actually do to solve them ourselves. Like for example, with food waste, you know, also with like other areas around food waste that are really active, like, you know, for example, Too Good To Go or something like that. Or I mean, I've been working for so many companies where, you know, half of the lunch is just thrown out or something. There's so many things going on where you're like, this is pointless. Like, isn't there some place that we can put this so it's not wasted? Like, I think it's really interesting. And yeah, the food waste problem is just so huge. Like, it's really, I really admire what you do and kind of the solutions and how it's taking off, because it's so exciting, you know, like as a relatively small startup, you know, just doing the
self-funded. Or like, oh no, yeah, well, we started out with not a lot of resources, and in the meantime we got some investors on board now, but like how we started was like self-financed, so really hustling.
Did you just go to a farm and ask them if you could buy their ugly foods?
Exactly. Actually, what we did is like we asked them, we called them first of all in English because first in English, and then we noticed that it's really difficult to get somebody to speak to you, so we tried with our really shitty Danish, and then we asked them, can we buy your waste? And then they said, no, we don't have any waste. And we were like, what? You don't have any waste? That doesn't add up to what we've like read for our desktop research. And then we realized that we have to frame it differently, that we have to talk about products they can't sell, and then it looks completely different. Like farmers are really proud people. They do incredibly hard work, and they're really proud, and like, you know, often they find ways of like how to even kind of integrate their waste. And for us, like when we talk about waste, we mean produce that is fine to eat but doesn't make it to people's plates. That is because it's grown for human production, but it doesn't end as human consumption. Sorry, it doesn't end up on people's plates. So that is waste in our definition, but maybe not necessarily the farmer's point of view. So that was also interesting learning just by talking to them on how you have to talk to them, right? Yeah.
So they're the one who's actually, or are they the one who are identifying like what's beautiful enough, or is it the business, like the supermarkets that are doing that?
It's their clients basically, or their customers.
Okay.
So there is like, so supermarkets, they have their own quality standards. But then there's also the European Union, they also have, which is called, marketing standards for fresh fruits and vegetables. So basically they classify the fruits and vegetables according to external factors, like, for example, the diameter of an apple. If it's below 60 millimeter, it's already class 2. So there's like class 0 and class 1 is usually what you buy in the supermarkets, and class 2 is, for example, everything that's slightly smaller, slightly bigger, or a bit differently shaped, or has maybe minor scratches on the surface. That's already enough to like classify as a class 2.
Okay.
And the problem is that there is no marketplace for class 2 vegetables. It's class 1 and 0 that get sold, but class 2, farmers usually have to find other ways to get rid of these fruits and vegetables. But a farmer is a busy person. They are very busy growing vegetables and keeping their contracts, increasing the product, or keeping the productivity that they are obliged to deliver for their very demanding customers. So for them, it's really difficult to find the time even to find new buyers for that. So as a consequence, they have to overproduce approximately 30% of what they expect to harvest, because they know there is so much they can't sell. And that means 30% of what they grow is just going to waste, meaning not ending up on people's plates.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
pretty fucked up.
It is pretty fucked up, actually. Okay, so you buy the what would you say, the second class or class 2 produce from the farmers? That's what you're buying.
It's also surplus. So that's also something as I already just mentioned, it's not just ugly, but it's also surplus. Actually, most of what we get is surplus. Like approximately 40% of everything we buy is surplus because of that issue that they have to overproduce. And then, like also farmers are so vulnerable to even weather. All of a sudden, it can be that the sun was out 2 weeks in a row in July. All of a sudden, their salads are just like skyrocketing. So they have to harvest it 2 weeks earlier, and so all of a sudden they also stand with like huge quantities of food they don't have a buyer for. And this is why we come in. So basically they can call us and ask us if we can buy some of that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on a bit. Like, I'm just sorry if I'm looking down from time to time. I'm checking my phone to see where Matilda is. And she's not here. I have no idea where she is. Anyway, let's continue because we need to get this going, right?
Exactly.
So one of the things that I'm really in touch with during my work and what would you say, my career within sustainability, and also working for the UN Foundation and the Plus Social Good community, is the SDGs, the global goals, or Verdensmålene, as they're called in Danish. Are you consciously working with them in your work day, or how, like, can you see any effect of you adding SDGs to an impact startup?
I think because the essence of what we do and the foundation of how, on what we built or founded our company, it's sustainable in itself, so that we actually don't really have to actively look for the SDGs sort of, because it is in essence, it's SDG number 12, responsible consumption and production. This is basically what our business model is. However, I think it's still a good idea, also generally to think of more in a broader way, what does a sustainable organization mean for you, right? There's like so many different aspects of it too.
Yeah.
Employees, like, I mean, we are a female founded company, like, you know, our ambition will always be to represent women in the best possible way and to give them the opportunity to be heard. So that is also for us like a really important part of everything we do and communicate.
So have you gone into some of the sub targets and actually identified and said like we're a what would you say, like for example within gender equality, right? Yeah. Do you work with the different sub targets, or like have you identified them, and does it, sorry I'm getting a bit into this because I'm a bit nerdy around it, and have you like does it make any impact, like for example when you're looking for like investors or something like that you can actually identify, you know, we're working with these and these SDGs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, especially for that one that I just mentioned, the gender equality, even though we have, I think, how much, 80% to date, but I think like our goal is to have minimum 50% of females in management or higher position, just to have it 50 or more.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
well, that's awesome.
Let me think. But otherwise, like not that much, no. Yeah, but
but you are like an SDG company, right? Because you get like so much with climate, you know, so much with responsible consumption and all of this. So it's kind of obvious, but I think it's just like it's always interesting for me to hear like how startups they're going about it. Also because I'm doing some talks about it from time to time. So
exactly. I mean, what we do in general, like we do measure the amount of food we have saved. I think by the end of this year we have saved 600 tons of food until we start from when we from when we started. Then also what we did in May, we had like a little research project going on where we analyzed how our boxes are being put together and looked into the impact of like each vegetable that is in the boxes. So we could like basically calculate how much each box on average saves in terms of CO2 emissions, water usage, and land freed up from, you know, agriculture. So that is also something that we calculate on an ongoing basis.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's next for you, like seen from an impact angle? Like what are you thinking? Like are you sometimes thinking like, can we do more? Or like from an impact point of view, like now you mentioned the boxes and you're already, you know, really doing a lot of stuff around, well, impact and the SDGs, but it could be that you're thinking, it would be really cool if we like did this and this.
Yes. So actually, yes, we do have like very high ambitions. Like it's also nice when you have, you know, when your core mission is to save as much food as you possibly can. It also gives you a lot of freedom to kind of experiment, like really what is the right or the best possible way to, you know, save shitloads of tons. And as I already mentioned, we're not just a food box, we're also working with food businesses. So I think we already did that more or less from the very beginnings, but we focus more on like small restaurants. But actually now with Corona, they're not doing so well at the moment, unfortunately. So we are also looking to, you know, like look into the strategy. So we will focus on big canteens, for example. We're talking to Kommune, you know, like big ass clients, let's say. So also we are looking to go to Sweden next year. So that's really great. We're like currently preparing for that. We believe that food waste has no borders. So naturally we are an international company. We see ourselves as spreading out as well to the rest of Europe. Yeah, I think, and then also what is really interesting for us to go beyond fruits and vegetables, because the food industry is so wasteful. There's a lot of things that cause waste. For example, you know, wrongly labeled products or expiry date is soon. So there's a lot of other food categories as well we could possibly integrate and save.
Cool. That
Yeah.
sounds amazing. I'm so psyched. Like it's so.
Yeah.
So is there any, like you're answering my questions beforehand, but I was thinking like, is there any like innovations around food waste that you can see that would give like a brighter future to the world and would make like your work easier as an impact startup?
I think, oh gosh, well, would be so many things that would make my life easier as the founder of an impact startup. Yeah, I think first of all, like getting funding. I think that is always like the like that, you know, the funding goes to the right kind of organizations. I think that's the most important thing. I think like what we personally always struggle a little bit with is that we are a physical, like a company that deals with real things, with physical goods. It's a lot about supply chain. So actually what we do, it's not rocket science. We shorten supply chains by getting food directly from the farms, not going over the middleman. So, you know, that is not like crazy. So like often when you talk to investors, especially when they have a bit of a tech background, then they're always like looking for this like, oh, but where's the, you know, the huge thing? It's like, oh, what's going on? It's like, yeah, but you know, it's still important, you know, and so sometimes we struggle a little bit to attract the right kind of investors. Luckily, we do have some really good ones on board already. For example, there is this like fund called Unconventional Ventures. They're really, do you know them?
I know them, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yes,
I
so
do.
They fund like underrepresented founders, like women. Hey, I think how much was it? 1% of 2% of all money invested in 2018 worldwide went to female-funded companies. So here you go. It's really necessary. Yeah. So I think that is just one big challenge in general.
You have to add some AI or some VR or something like that, or do a CMS.
Not really. You know?
No, I'm just thinking about, you know, the tech investors and stuff like that.
But actually, like, I mean, now I'm pretending that we are like no tech company at all, but actually we are like a tech powered company, because what we are developing right now, it's not in secret, but maybe in silence, is like a whole platform, which is basically also the backbone of how we see ourselves scale to other countries. So it's basically a platform that gives value in 3 ways. First, to the farms, so the farms can report what they have left to sell of ugly and surplus produce, and can, you know, grade it and categorize it and so on and so on. And then it gives food businesses, on the other hand, the chance to buy this produce. And then it gives us, Eatgrim, the possibility to use that produce to, you know, make our boxes or, yeah, things like that. So
that's amazing. So you are a tech startup.
Yeah.
It's always like, it's always hard, like, to be on the what would you say, on the verge between hardware or software, or online and offline, you know, because it limits the field of investors so much.
Exactly.
Anyway, I could talk about that for hours.
Yeah.
So where do you see the food industry heading from an impact point of view? Are you seeing like more companies like you're starting up, or like how do you see that they're managing the problems? Or maybe even, I don't know if you know this, but maybe even, you know, taking the SDGs into consideration. Like, is any work being done around that? Do you know?
Well, I think, well, there's definitely, I think Corona has really given the food industry like an insane blast. I think a lot of like rapid development has started to happen, which is actually quite exciting. So I think people in general are more health conscious and spend more time also at home in their own kitchens. So I think we will definitely see also like a demand for like healthy, fresh food that is really easy to trace. So I think like in general, like the whole conversations about traceability and transparency will be very important going forward.
Blockchain. No.
Yes, well, that's true. Yes, blockchain, for example, right? Actually, when like we were visiting China, when was it? 2 years ago or something, we went to a supermarket in Shanghai, which was insane. Like it was kind of like everybody was just like obviously like paying with their phones, like they don't use wallets at all.
Yeah.
But like every like shelf had like a little code that you could scan, and then you would actually see the entire history of where the food came from. There was a picture of the farmer, of the farm, what pesticides were used or were not used. So it was really like pretty impressive actually. And then at the same time, they had like a lot of people and like kind of employees in the shop who were like just there. We could see them like with the phone or something, like just filling baskets. And then they would like put the full baskets on like some like overhead conveyor belt that would like rush somewhere.
Wow.
And where it would then be packed and then delivered directly to a person. So I think like 30 minutes, you can like place an order in 30 minutes, you have it. So I think like that also in general, like, convenience of food. I think there will be a lot of like logistical last mile delivery innovations as well. So that's really exciting. Yeah. And I think also customization will be quite important. Like it's not really one size fits all. It's people want to choose their product, and that's also something that we are thinking all the time of how can we integrate that more into our business to even create less waste, right? How can we really give people what they want and create even more value? And I think like in general, creating value and like really thinking of like having that mindset all the time, like how can we create custom experience that really matters? How can we create, tell the stories that matter? That will be what the customers will favor as well. That's why I think supermarkets will eventually have a really hard time if they're not catching up as well on that end.
Well, they're doing a bit of work around it, I think, but I mean, they can do way more, like a lot more.
Yeah. So
all right. So if you want to work within food waste, like if you want to do your own impact startup within food waste, what skill set do you think you're needing? Like if you're going to say, okay, we're setting up an organization, we need these and these people, like.
Oh, that's really, oh gosh. Actually, like my answer was like, in terms of skills, I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, right? I already said that when we started Grimm, there was no like specific knowledge about food. I think it's really just, you really have to be able to get into the whole thing with everything you have and like try to get to know as many people in the networks. Like we attended a lot of events, like everything from startup tech events to kind of like food things. Like we really were there. We were really building the network, investing a lot of time on it. I think LinkedIn is a great place to be in general, to follow companies that you like at the people, write a message. I think that's a really good start. I don't know, I would say try to get an internship at a company that you like, to get some insights. If you're interested in Meet Grimm, you can also, or like to really, or like understand how things really work. Yeah, we do sometimes still work with volunteers, so you could also come volunteer and see for yourself. We are always super happy to talk about our experience and answer questions. We have like a big community as well of volunteers, a lot of also foreigners who just really appreciate a place to meet like-minded people. So yeah.
How long time, this is just an additional question that I just thought of when you were speaking. How long time did it take before you were thinking, okay, we need to have somebody with an agricultural background on the team?
Actually, no one from our team has an agricultural background.
Okay. Wow, that's so cool.
That's really, but still, like, I think at some point we should probably have someone. I mean, I think at some point you will run into the same kind of issues. I think it just helps in general, like when you deal with produce, that you have some sort of networks there, and that you have like a basic understanding of what the quality is and what you have to look out for. I think a lot of what we did and a lot of our mistakes happened from trial and error, that we had to really try it out and then realize this is actually really horrible. That doesn't work. So maybe a lot of that could have been avoided by getting somebody from the industry in there. But I mean, we are still building our team as we speak. There's a lot of room for us to hire the right kind of people as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any events that you would like to highlight for people where you're like, okay, if you want to get into food waste, you have to go to this, or you have to get in touch with these and these people? They were like pivotal to our progress, or something like that.
Sure. I think you just missed one. So Denmark. I think luckily the awareness around food waste is really high right now. So Denmark has just celebrated their first National Food Waste Day. So for example, there was like a series of events. When was it? Like a month ago or something? With like organized by Tænke Tank Frei, or like a specifically food waste think tank 1/3. I think this is really good places to start digging into. Yeah, so I think maybe I would suggest to be part of these networks could be really valuable.
Is there any like global events where you're like, you have to be there?
Oh gosh, not right now under Corona, I think.
No, maybe.
Yeah, at least not me, maybe someone else from the team.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so the last question is around this community that we're trying to build or reestablish. Shout Your Impact has had what would you say, a long ride for women in technology, and now I'm trying to pivot it more to women, like empower women to do more impact, basically by having these talks. I would love them to be physical. I would love to meet like the community physical, but we can't right now. But where do you see that we could, as a community, as empowered, impactful women, where could we put in like a massive contribution, and what would you like to see it developed into? It's like a very selfish question, I guess, but from one entrepreneur to another.
Yeah, I think in general, like, if we get like, I think like women in general, or like, we are maybe a bit more reluctant to celebrate our successes. So I think if we like create some sort of space where we can celebrate specific women on specific successes and specific wins, that could be already amazing. Like
cool idea.
Like really highlighting that person with that success, and then celebrating it. Like I once had a Facebook group, a private Facebook group with friends, where the only rule was only positive feedback, and that worked really well. Actually, like how, like, being positive and being supportive of each other, and celebrating each other in that way. I think that's really empowering, and we really need to do that more.
I think I'm going to
only thought that I had, actually.
That's great. That's great. I'm just writing it down.
Yeah.
Cool. That's actually what we had. I have no idea where Matilda went. I think maybe she missed it at least, but it was super great.
You have another one with her.
I will have another one with her probably, but it was super great talking to you. You're such an inspiration. I think on behalf of the whole community, thank you so much for showing up, and it was awesome. Like, thanks, thank you, and I'll see you in there, I guess.
Yeah, I will start posting something. That would be great.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
All right.
Good evening.
Yeah. Bye.